A seemingly innocent comment that popped up on one of my videos made me think a lot about how we interact with technology, how cameras evolve, and how our choices as creators influence what people perceive about us. What happened to your Fujifilm? Someone asked me, clearly noticing the shift in the type of content I was producing. That question, however, wasn't as simple as it sounded. It was a question laced with curiosity about my gear journey. Curiosity about how the tools I use have evolved over the years. The comment made me smile because just that very day, I had uploaded a video about using the Fujifilm X-T20 during a trip to Portugal. So, in a way, the answer to the question was clear. It hadn't gone anywhere. My Fujifilm cameras were still part of my arsenal, still helping me tell stories. But the perception from some viewers, especially those who find my channel at different times, could be a little skewed. You see, YouTube doesn't have a chronological order in how videos are seen. A viewer might stumble upon a video I posted back in 2018, and that can lead them to think that my preferences and choices haven't changed since then. The thing about YouTube, and any platform for that matter, is that you can be discovered at any moment, no matter when the content was uploaded. For some, it might seem as if there's no continuity or progression in the work that's being created. Videos that are several years old can still be relevant, and that's both a blessing and a curse. While it's great to know that my old work can still be useful, it also creates confusion when I've evolved as a creator. It might lead to comments like, "What happened to your Fujifilm?" This isn't the first time I've encountered such a question, and I'm sure it won't be the last. As a content creator, I've always found it funny how people think a gear choice has some deeper meaning. The simple truth is that I'm a working photographer. Cameras come and go, and each piece of gear has a place and purpose in the workflow. The gear I choose, whether it's Fujifilm, Sony, or Nikon, is based on the job at hand, not any particular loyalty to a brand. In fact, I think the best way to approach gear is with the mindset that nothing is sacred. Cameras are just tools. The sooner you accept that, the better. And yes, sometimes you can get a bit sentimental about your gear, especially when you've made memories with it. I mean, how many of us have a camera that feels like an old friend? For me, that camera is the Fujifilm X-T20. Let me walk you through my current Fujifilm collection, and I'll tell you why these cameras remain an integral part of my workflow. The first Fujifilm camera I ever owned was the X100S. This camera was a game changer for me, and I owe a lot of that to Zach Arias, a photographer who was so enthusiastic about the files coming out of the X100S that it convinced me to jump in. At the time, I had been using DSLRs, but there was something about the size, build quality, and the look of the photos from the X100S that intrigued me. It wasn't just about the specs, it was about the feeling I got when using it. It felt like a classic, and it made me rethink my approach to photography. I often joke about how it feels like a film camera in the digital age because of its simplicity and the tactile experience it provides. After the X100S, I decided to venture into the world of interchangeable lens cameras with the Fujifilm X-T20. Bought in 2017, this camera really set the stage for my YouTube channel. In fact, I consider it a symbolic piece of gear. It was the one that launched my channel, so it will always hold a special place in my heart. The X-T20 had everything I wanted at the time: compact size, fantastic image quality, and a highly responsive touch interface. Over the years, it has remained my go-to camera for street photography and casual shoots. It's small enough to slip into my bag, yet capable enough to deliver outstanding image quality. I find the 24-megapixel sensor in this camera to be the perfect balance of detail and noise control. Sure, the newer models like the X-T3, X-T4, and X-T5 might have more accurate colors, but the X-T20's files still hold a unique charm. There's a certain punchiness to the colors that I love. Not long after the X-T20, I picked up the Fujifilm X-T2, which marked an upgrade to a more robust autofocus system and additional features like weather sealing. It was the first camera from Fujifilm that made me realize how much the company was pushing the envelope with its mirrorless technology. Still, the X-T20 remained my favorite, even after owning the X-T2. There's something about the simplicity of the X-T20 that resonates with me. Then came the X-T3, which I nearly sold out of impulse, thinking the X-T5 would be the next best thing. That would have been a mistake though, as I eventually realized that I loved the 26-megapixel sensor in the X-T3. It's an ideal choice for my type of work, especially when I want to capture fast-moving subjects without worrying about cropping or needing too many megapixels. Another camera in my collection is the Fujifilm X-E2, a camera that's often overlooked but still has a special place in my heart. It features the same sensor as the X-T20, but in a much smaller and more minimalist body. This camera is all about the experience of shooting. Its color science is a little off when compared to modern standards, but that's part of its charm. It reminds me of shooting film with all its quirks and imperfections. If you've ever used the X-E2, you know it has a distinct look to its files that some people love and others don't. The Fujifilm X70 is another oddball in my collection. It has the same sensor as the X-E2, but with a compact design that makes it perfect for street photography. What makes this camera special, aside from the sensor, is its lack of a viewfinder. I know, no viewfinder sounds like a deal breaker, but the X70's size and usability make it ideal for candid shots. The lack of a viewfinder forces you to be more intuitive with your shots, and it actually improves my street photography technique. Plus, with my vision declining, shooting with this camera means I can practice my skills without being burdened by the need for additional accessories like reading glasses. Of course, it's not all about Fujifilm. Sony's ZV-1 has become my go-to vlogging camera. I love the way it turns on instantly when I open the screen, ready to record, no fuss. It's perfect for capturing family moments and spontaneous videos. And while I don't use it as much for professional work, it's a great tool for documenting life in a way that's both fun and functional. As for DSLRs, I find myself drawn back to them every now and then. My Nikon D700 remains one of my all-time favorite cameras. It's a reminder of a time when cameras were made with durability and tactile feedback in mind. Despite being a 12-megapixel camera, the images from the D700 are still stunning. The colors, the depth, the overall feel. It's a perfect example of how sometimes the gear isn't the most important thing, it's how you use it. And then there's my Canon 5D Mark III. I've sold and rebought this camera a few times because the image quality is just that good. It remains my favorite Canon DSLR, and the files I get from it have such a beautiful look to them. I recently used it for a cityscape shoot in Montreal, and the results were gorgeous. That combo with the 70-200mm f Charon 2.8 lens, simply magical. So, back to the original question. What happened to your Fujifilm? Well, nothing happened. I still love my Fujifilm cameras, and they are still very much a part of my workflow. However, as a photographer who works in different fields and environments, my gear will inevitably evolve. Just because I'm using something new doesn't mean I've abandoned the past. All the cameras in my collection have a place and a purpose, and that's the beauty of photography. The tools might change, but the vision remains the same. The key takeaway here is that cameras are just tools. Whether it's Fujifilm, Sony, Nikon, or any other brand, it's the photographer behind, the camera that matters. For me, it's about finding the right gear for the job, not being overly sentimental about a specific brand or model. As for my future gear journey, who knows? There are so many exciting cameras on the horizon, and as technology advances, I'll continue to adapt. But one thing is for sure, Fujifilm will always have a place in my heart.